Okay, we are going to call this meeting to order. It is 6:31. If everyone could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I apologize, I jumped ahead. Were you ready up there? All right. Okay, roll call.
Cheryl Hancock.
Here.
Nathan Harris.
Here.
Tobey Thomas.
Here.
Andrew McGee.
Here.
Philip Snowberger.
Here.
Chris Gibson.
Here.
Lauren Foley.
Here.
All 7 members are present.
All right, I'll welcome 2 new members to our Plan Commission. Councilwoman Cheryl Hancock and Chris Gibson, who are both our representatives of town staff or town council. And thank you for being a part of the commission. And we'll move on to the first item on the agenda. We have every January election of officers, and for this we only have
President and Vice President. Correct.
I'll open it up for nominations.
I'll nominate Andrew McGee for president.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second from myself. Any other nominations? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor for myself as president, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now entertain a motion for vice president.
I'll make the motion we appoint Phil Snowberger as vice president.
I will second. So we have Philip. Any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote on this one. So all's in favor of Philip as vice president, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. We shall move on. Approval of the agenda. Is there any changes?
I'll make a motion to wait, hold on. Can we combine D and E? Okay. I will make a motion to combine items D and E, which is Anson Office Building Concept Plan and Anson Office Development Plan, into one presentation, but still 2 motions.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it'll be one presentation then. Any other changes? All right. Hearing none. Entertain a motion with the, sorry, your motion was to approve with combined, yeah, sorry. And then December 9th meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the December 9th, 2024 Plan Commission meeting minutes.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Is there any public requests to speak on items that are not on the agenda? I don't have any in front of me. I don't believe, nope. And is there any online? All right, thank you. Not online. So we'll move on. There's no presentations. And no old business, so we'll move on to new business. Item PC 24-048-PP, the Enclave at Whitestown. Petitioner, you go ahead and approach the podium. Just a reminder, state your name and address.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Bruce Fagan. I'm with Davis Homes. Excuse me. Our offices are at 3950 South Priority Way Drive in Indianapolis. Here before you today to request a reapproval of the enclave at Whitestown primary plat. The primary reason that we're here before you requesting that reapproval is that we relocated the lift station to an internal site rather than on the western edge of the property. This resulted in a couple of things. Number one, it got us closer to the sewer main that we'll be tying into with the lift station. And it also actually increased the common area buffer along that western border. We also created a section line, so there's a section 1 and a section 2, which will enable us to not build the entire subdivision all in one move. With the lift station on the western property line, it would have predicated all the infrastructure all in one move. So that's the primary reason we're here this evening requesting a reapproval.
Okay. Thank you. And staff report?
Yes, good evening, Planning Commission members. So just as a reminder with primary plats, so when there are kind of substantive changes to the layout, lot location changes, things like that, is what requires a change to the primary plat for why they're coming back here. If there are small changes in that don't really require shifting lot locations, things like that, or roads, minor amendments can go straight to secondary plat, but this one was enough of a change that we felt needed to come back here. This request does not increase the number of lots from the original primary plat, and as a result, staff recommends approval of this request. As you can see on the kind of final page of the staff report, there are a couple recommended motion languages there. Should the Plan Commission find approval, that it would be subject to the staff report, staff recommendations and findings of fact. Then there are others if you feel the need for conditional approval with additional commitments, continuances, or denials of the request. I'll address any other questions you might have.
Okay. Thank you. So I will open the public hearing for this item at 6:38. I do not have any requests to speak on this item at the moment, but if there's anybody in the room that would like to speak on this item, you can certainly step forward. Okay. Seeing none, is there anyone online for this item? Okay. And we'll close the public hearing then at 6:39. I'll open it up for the commission. Questions or comments from the commission?
I only have one question. I see that you're landscaping on 3 of the 4 sides. Will you be putting any kind of landscaping on the side that faces the road?
Are you referring to the lift station location itself?
Yes.
We would be open to doing that, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Just maybe, it doesn't look like there's anything on the side that faces to the west where the
Okay.
drive, I'm assuming, will be for the lift
Oh,
station.
facing west actually faces the road, which would be the entryway for service to the lift station, that sort of thing. If the public works people would allow a gate, we would entertain that as well. But yeah, that'll be the driveway to the lift station facing west. So.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments on this item? Okay. Hearing none. Entertaining a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve docket PC 24-048 primary or preliminary plat for enclave at Whitestown. As presented and described based on the staff report and staff recommendations and the submitted findings of fact.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and there's a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
All right. We'll move on to the next item. PC 24-049-PP, primary plat, Bridal Oaks South. Petitioner?
Yes, good evening, Mr. President. For the record, my name is Matt Price. I'm an attorney with Dent representing the petitioner. We have an address of 10 West Market Street, Indianapolis, Indiana. And we're here tonight for preliminary plat approval. We're referring to this project as Bridal Oaks South, as it is the latest, really, section of Bridal Oaks to be platted. And I can give you just a little bit of an overview and then explain why we believe we meet each one of the standards under Whitestown Subdivision Control Ordinance. First of all, with regard to the land area in question, it's the land is the rectangular area which extends from Main Street to Albert S. White as you go west to east. And as you can see, if you look to the north, is a prior section of Bridal Oaks, and then to the west, Walker Farm. So it's essentially surrounded by existing single-family residential. This plat would be for an additional 121 lots or home sites. That's capped under the zoning ordinance, and so that's how we establish the number of lots. As the staff report indicates, we maintain 15% open space and have and in each case meet the development standards under the previously approved zoning for this project. So we meet each of the minimum lot size. As I mentioned, cap the number of dwelling units at 121, meet the minimum lot width requirements as well as the minimum open space. A few other things that I would note is that the access to the subdivision is from the east, from Albert S. White, and we work very closely with staff to establish the appropriate access and traffic circulation really throughout the plat. As you can see, the curvilinear streets, it provides for a nice, safe transportation system throughout the subdivision. We're not seeking any waivers or variances in connection with the plat. And as I mentioned, and we agree with the staff report that we meet each one of the requirements under the subdivision control ordinance, and respectfully request your approval tonight. Thank you very much.
Hey, staff report?
This project is about 62 acres. As Mr. Price said, it's part of the Bridal Oaks Plan Unit Development. And we did find that it is meeting the criteria for the lot size and layout of the Bridal Oaks PUD. The roadway that's kind of shown, or right-of-way shown, to the south of the project. We have been working with them pretty diligently in making sure that that right-of-way is included. So the overall Bridal Oaks PUD, as a part of that and part of the thoroughfare plan, does require the connection from South Main Street east to Albert S. White, where Albert S. White turns to the north along the east side. Essentially with all of that, staff does believe that they've met the requirements for the primary plat approval. As previous motion, there are 4 suggested motions on the back while we are recommending approval. And I'll answer any other questions you might have regarding this request.
Okay. I will open the public hearing for this item at 6:46. On this item as well, I don't have anyone already signed up to speak, but if you'd like to speak on this item, this is your opportunity. All right. Seeing none in the room, is anyone online that would like to speak? All right. I'll look around one more time. All right, we'll close the public hearing on this item. Just go ahead and say 6:47. I'll open it up for the commission. Any questions, comments?
I have two, Mr. Price. It looks like you'll have technically two entrances into this section, one off of Albert S. White and then one from the Bridal Oaks from the north, off of that Pekingese, or whatever that road is. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we have connectivity to the north, as you're pointing out, and then we have the access off of Albert S. White as well.
Okay, wonderful. My second question is, I know we've talked about this on some other projects, and one thing to make sure that whoever is developing these homes are aware that those homes may end up being in a different school system as far as elementary school.
Right.
I don't know if you've spoken to the schools. I know currently there's two plans with Lebanon schools. One of those plans will send the kids to Perryworth. The other one will send them to Stokes up in Lebanon. So just something that if this gets approved, to make sure that they're aware
Right.
Ahead of time, because that will be done probably this month.
Right. And I would put it this way, as you know from our discussions in the past about this very topic, it's certainly something that we monitor closely. Our preparations for tonight obviously have been to focus on making sure we satisfy the subdivision control standards, but we're certainly monitoring that situation.
Thank you.
So it's kind of hard to tell on this. Is there going to be connectivity to Main Street as well? Because I noticed that road to the south is called Indigo Blue.
Yeah, so there's if you see the Whitestown thoroughfare plan calls for that connector street east-west, and so we've worked with the town to assure that there's right-of-way dedicated to construct that road in the future, so that element of the plan can be fulfilled.
Okay, so that connector onto Main Street isn't part of this project?
It is not. It
Okay.
is not. We've worked very closely with town engineering to arrive at the alignment that they desired and provided for the appropriate right-of-way dedication.
So essentially the portion south of there, what's shown in the exhibit that's on the screen, Block A, there's additional land in Block A that is also part of the Bridal Oaks PUD. And so we anticipate as that piece develops, essentially that additional coordination on the construction of the rest of that piece will come as that property to the south develops.
But for the time being, the only access is that gray area there on the map,
right. That's
being
right.
out to Albert S. White, right?
Yeah, right.
And is
Well, I
this,
shouldn't say the only access, but because you'll have to the north, right? Yeah.
Correct, to the north, right.
and this is all going to fall under the Bridal Oaks Homeowners Association that's already been established with the original residential development to the north, correct?
Correct. I believe this section will have its own homeowners association, just as a separate section. It would continue to be governed by all of the architectural standards that are set forth in the Bridal Oaks PUD, though. So those base standards will continue to be followed.
Was there any discussion about putting a roundabout at that intersection with Preakness and Indigo Blue in that future right-of-way area? It looks like the couple of major intersections to the north through the subdivision have roundabouts, and this wouldn't be a kind of a straight through from Main Street to Albert S. White. Was there any discussion or consideration about that?
I'm not aware that there has been. I mean, we've worked very closely with DPW over the last couple of years on that configuration.
Okay.
So there was a concept at one point that contemplated a roundabout there, but that's not what's anticipated at this time. No.
So just to circle back to my other question, did I understand it correctly that this is going to be a separate HOA, but it's still going to fall under the same development standards, correct? So is this going to be marketed, what type of product are you going to be marketing this as? Is it going to be a for rent community? Is it going to be a targeted age demographic? What are we looking at?
I would call it traditional single-family for-sale homes.
So would you be open to, I know there's been a lot of talk that you've been involved with as far as some of the rental quote-unquote restrictions that have been put in place with other developments and their HOAs. Is that something that you would be agreeable to on this too?
We're not. We believe that that's up to that HOA to decide how they want to do that, and they'll have the advantage of having a clean slate up front to be able to establish their own rental restrictions, rather than making the occupancy part of the primary plat.
And I guess from my personal experience, having been on the other side of that, it's a lot easier to say the HOA can do this once it's in effect, but to get the actual people to get the votes that you need to make these changes, it's harder to do after the fact than if it were already in place.
Yeah, and what I think I'm pointing to is that I think as part of a primary plat, that really should be something that the owners decide, as opposed to making that part of the platting process.
Okay.
Because we have the zoning established already and have very significant high-quality restrictions on the property that were put in place at the time the property was zoned.
No, I agree with you on that. I guess I feel like I wouldn't be doing somewhat of my due diligence if I didn't ask the question at the steps.
I understand. Yep.
Just a question that I had, just to make sure I understand this properly. Todd, you were saying earlier with that Block A, once that gets built out, is the plan later on then to connect that southern right-of-way to Indigo Blue so you can get in from Main Street, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, the western piece of that aligns across from Indigo
Indigo
Blue.
Blue.
Correct.
And there's no timeline that you know of or that you're planning for that Block A to be built out?
Yeah, Block A is a separate,
It's its own thing.
separate property owner that I do think you should be aware, because I think it's been very diligent on behalf of the town, is that the petitioner and that property owner really were required to work together to arrive at that pathway for the road that was acceptable to the town. So that's been coordinated up front.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments? I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve docket PC 24-049 PP preliminary plat for Bridal Oaks South, as presented and described based on the staff report, staff recommendations, and the submitted findings of fact.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right. Move on to item C, PC 24-050. ZA, zoning amendment, Cardinal Point Estates. Huh? Yeah, Todd? Yeah. Can you just test your mic real quick?
Test.
Oh, there it is. Maybe you just need to move a little closer.
I just have to talk a little closer.
Maybe, yeah.
I think it's hard. It's hard for me to hear. I think with the fans going and the HVAC at the
Yes.
same time.
It's hard to hear.
David, are you able to up the mics or the speakers in the room?
Is it hard to hear just Todd or everybody?
Everyone.
Oh,
Can we turn the fans?
I was hearing myself echo.
Is it possible to turn the ceiling fans down some? I think that's just
Yeah, the
adding on to
blower's
the
really
noise.
loud tonight.
Get you in just a minute then.
I feel like my mic's on now.
That's better with less.
That helps.
I think that's a lot better.
All right. Petitioner.
Ready? Good evening, Mr. President and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Brian Toohey. My address is 50 South Meridian. I represent the petitioner in case number 24050ZA, Cardinal Estates. Here with me tonight are two representatives from the petitioner, Sean Blackburn and Nathan Rio. They're both involved in land acquisition and land entitlement for the Lennar Corporation. Thank you for hearing our case this evening. So this case involves a site that is about 170 acres, sort of in the southwest corner of Whitestown. In fact, on that exhibit that shows the outline of the site, that line right there is the Whitestown town limits, and it's right on the county line, separating Hendricks County and Boone County. So this, and you see the site now has a road running through it called Wolf Road. That road kind of comes down through here and makes a jog and then heads south. And right across the street from the site is Cardinal Point. This development would be named Cardinal Estates. And of course, north of it is the Golf Club of Indiana. The rest of the properties around it to the west are agricultural and single-family residential. Same here in Hendricks County along the south. And then along the eastern border, we have some residential homes and some other agricultural sites. The idea that Lennar has in asking for this rezoning to R3 is to build a community age-targeted for what are called active adults. And the way that this community is going to target that group is not by restricting it, so we won't have a mandate that you have to be older than 55 or some age like that, but they're going to, as part of their zoning, only build either one-story or at the most 1.5-story homes. And Sean will explain the type of product. But the idea is to attract folks who only want a one-story home, want to live near a golf course, have that recreational opportunity. And in fact, with ownership in this community, each owner will receive, it'll be a requirement, they'll become a social member of the Golf Club of Indiana. And the Golf Club of Indiana, I spoke to them a couple of times, but I talked to Jeff Rubenstein, and they are wholly in support of this development. It helps build their membership. It gets more play to their golf course, and they've talked about it at their annual meeting recently to all their residents. So the idea is not to restrict it to only folks that are active adults, but to target that with these types of homes and not have two-story homes. When you're looking at rezoning, of course, one of the things you look at is what does the comprehensive plan recommend, and we've had several meetings with the staff. And this site is a little bit unusual in that there are actually two designations in the comprehensive plan. It calls for low-density residential and mixed residential use. So here's our site right in here. Here's the Golf Club of Indiana up here. This road right here is interesting. That's not there, but that's the future location, the proposed future location of Ronald Reagan Parkway. So the site, if that comes to fruition, which we understand is in the works, would be bordered on the west side by the extension of Ronald Reagan Parkway And then here's the county road across the north side, and Golf Club of Indiana and Cardinal Point is right up here. And what the comprehensive plan calls for is to have both low-density residential and mixed residential on the site. And in terms of density, the comprehensive plan speaks of from below about 1 3/4, 1.75 homes per acre to 4 to 6 homes per acre. And in our site plan, what we plan is to have about 2.11 homes per acre would be our density in our site plan. The Whitestown Comprehensive Plan says that low-density residential areas are intended for medium to small-size lots for subdivisions with single-family detached homes. That's what we plan to build, would be single-family detached homes. And in the mixed residential area, it goes on to say that those are areas where you'd have moderate to higher density residential developments, and the densities would be between 4 and 7 units per acre within this district. And the staff, after meeting with us and on several occasions and looking this over, concludes in their report that this side of Whitestown has seen a lot of development, including the development of the Golf Course of Indiana, Cardinal Point, Ellis Acres, and the staff opines that this would build on the petition, or build on the success of those developments. So what would Lennar propose to do? They propose to develop this site, and this plan shows where Ronald Reagan Parkway is proposed to come in, because we thought that the Plan Commission would want to see what that would look like. That's that road on the left-hand side of the development, the west side of the development. This plan shows about 360 home sites, and the homes, as I mentioned, the density would be about 2.11 units per acre, and the homes would have a minimum of 56-foot wide lots by 130 feet deep, and go up to a minimum of 65 by 130-foot deep lots. Those standards exceed the minimum lot widths in your R3 district. The idea would be to have a boulevard-type entrance up on the north end of the site, as shown here. Up in this area here, there'd be an amenity area that Mr. Blackburn will talk about in a minute. Here, there would be trails that would connect within the subdivision to the amenity area, and then there would be green space around the perimeter of the area on the south and the west and the north, and up here in the northeast corner. The streets, of course, would be built to the community standards. There'd be sidewalks on both sides of the street, and we would meet the zoning standards of the R3 district. This is how it would look in terms of inserting it into what's there now. You can see across the street is Cardinal Point, the Golf Club of Indiana to the north. This shows where the proposed right-of-way for Ronald Reagan would be in, and shows those green areas, again, that extend down to the county line, the county border. I will let Mr. Blackburn give you some information about their vision of how this subdivision will be built out, and I'll finish in a minute.
Hello, Commissioners. Sean Blackburn with Lennar Homes of Indiana. I just wanted to share with you some of the vision for this site. We have some homes that we built in Cardinal Point just to the north of this, and we've decided to make a larger investment in the area. Shall we get rezoned? And we are calling this one Cardinal Estates, with a logo that ties in with Cardinal Point just to the north. Here's a couple other renderings of the logos, and then a staged interior of one of the homes that we're planning to put on this subject property. This is the flavor of Cardinal Estates. There you can see our Ashbury home in the bottom left, as well as inspiration from some of the amenities that will go in this area. As Brian mentioned earlier, there will be a social membership to the Golf Club of Indiana included in the HOA, as well as a pool and bathhouse, pickleball courts, and walking trails throughout the site. Here more just has two of the other homes that we'll be putting on the subject property if we should get rezoned. You'll see the Seabrook there to the left of the Ashbury again in a different elevation. The pictures are just kind of an inspiration showing that we're trying to target both, adults who are empty nesters, as well as active adults aging in place, and then also the young singles, I guess you would say, as well. This community is going to be age targeted just based off product and location. So we're only going to have ranch and 1.5-story homes here. And then as well as being a part of the Golf Club of Indiana, that lends itself more to active adults and those that are empty nesters. Here you'll see the concept entry monumentation. This would match quite nicely with what's existing at Cardinal Point to make a cohesive community between the two. Here are the 3 homes that we're going to be putting in the community, shall we get rezoned. Each one of these homes has 3 unique elevations. Not all of them are listed there, but the top 2 are the Seabrook, which is a 3-bed, 3-bath, approximately 2,200 square feet. And then in the bottom left there, you'll see the Ashbury, which is 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,800 square feet. And then in the bottom right, you'll see the Allen, which is a 3-bed, 2-bath, approximately 1,600 square feet. The other nice thing about these homes is they'll be comprised strictly of hardy plank and masonry material. They'll have paved driveways, and the HOA will maintain the common areas and all amenities, as well as common area landscaping.
Thank you, Sean. Members of the Plan Commission, staff is recommending a favorable recommendation for this zoning map change. And I think when you look at the recommendation, and as I understand your UDO, there's 5 criteria I think you examine when considering a rezoning. And the 5 criteria, the first one is whether the proposed rezone is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. And I think your comprehensive plan, I think our exhibit showed that what it calls for is residential uses, and that's what this is proposed for, is a residential subdivision. It also suggests that you look at current conditions and the character of structures around the site. Well, the current conditions around the site are primarily agricultural right now, except right across the street, it's residential, and as you go east, it's residential. So again, it seems to me that this proposed rezone is appropriate with those current conditions. You have to consider whether it's the most desirable use for which the land in each district is adapted. It's kind of an unusual site in the fact that you're right next to the Golf Club of Indiana residential subdivision. You're right on the county line, and then to the west, you have apparently a pretty high likelihood that you're going to have a multi-lane highway, Ronald Reagan Parkway, running up along that area. So you're probably going to see along that Ronald Reagan Parkway some light industrial, commercial kind of uses. And I think staff recognizes that and believes that this is a good transition between those kind of more commercial industrial uses against Ronald Reagan. This is a residential area that will then transition into other residential areas. That seems to make sense. And then you have to examine whether the proposed rezone conserves property values throughout the jurisdictional area. Our immediate neighbor to the north, the Golf Club of Indiana, has weighed in and thinks this is a good idea. They'd be very concerned about any detriment to those property values, and it will certainly substantially increase the assessed value of that site. And then whether the proposed rezone demonstrates responsible development and growth. It seems to me that the evidence of that is your staff has examined this and they are supporting this rezoning and find it to be in compliance with your comprehensive plan and meet the goals of what's called Special Development Area 8. If this is approved, the timeline would be something like the development work would start in the fall of this year, 2025. You would see probably homes start to be built a year later in the fall of 2026, and occupancy late in 2026, early 2027. With the size of this community, Lennar's best estimate is that it would be a 4 or 5 year term to build this out. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to work with the Whitestown staff. We thank you for your time in hearing our case tonight, and we'll try to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Okay. Staff report.
Mr. Tui did clearly identify the five criteria. So with any proposed zone change, just as a reminder to the board, your action here is a recommendation onto town council. So once you determine your recommendation, this will go on to the town council for their determination on the zoning as well. Both the Plan Commission and council, by statute, are kind of given the task to pay reasonable regard to those five criteria that he outlined there towards the end of his presentation. This project does border the Ronald Reagan Parkway. Assuming I'm probably going to get the question, when's the parkway coming? So I'll try to tackle that a little bit. The short answer is there's no set time frame yet on when the parkway is coming through. A lot of that will depend on coordination between Whitestown, Zionsville, which this would actually continue to the north of 750 South, and then back into Whitestown once it gets north of Whitestown Parkway. So essentially, we don't have a set timeline on actual construction yet. Coming up from the south, from Hendricks County, they are in the process of completing a bridge over the CSX Railroad that's a couple miles south of the county line. So that will that segment is actively under construction in Hendricks County currently. Their next phase would actually bring it just about a half mile to our southern border, the county line at Hendricks County's County Road 1000 North, or 86th Street as that goes into Indianapolis. Hendricks County has stated that essentially they will stop at 86th Street until there is a time frame, essentially, because there would not be any other connection kind of up to the county line. There'd be no there's no street at the county line. So that time frame is out there at some point. You know, my best guess is you're probably in the 5 to 10 year, or even that 10 to 15 year before we really have Reagan in the ground in Boone County, kind of going forward. But this would be a critical piece for the town as we go through the development process, working through the primary plat to obtain that right of way for Reagan that does touch on portions of their property. Staff did complete a review of this request in conjunction with our comprehensive plan, where we are sending or recommending a favorable recommendation onto the Plan Commission to continue forward to Town Council. And again, just a reminder, any motion for this would be for a favorable, unfavorable, or no recommendation onto Council. I will attempt to answer any other questions you might have, should you have any.
Thank you. All right, we will open the public hearing for this item at 7:14. I do have quite a few people to speak on this item, so just to be respectful and give everyone a chance to talk, just a reminder, if you could please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less so we can get everybody up to speak. And I apologize on the first one. Ridelfo? Or, sorry. Just a reminder for everyone, just state your name and address when you do come to the podium.
My name is Tony Rodolfo. I'm with the law firm of Hackman Hewlett. We have offices at 1620 West Oak Street in Zionsville, offices downtown. I represent Zach and Kayla Sanders. They reside at 5355 East 750, which is located, if you look at the site map, in the northeast corner. They have the home, the small dot, white dot, in the northeast corner. My clients and several others participated in a neighborhood meeting in mid-December and understood that coming out of that meeting that Lennar would get back to them with written responses to questions that they raised. Having not heard from Lennar's representatives Friday afternoon, they reached out to me. I submitted a written request for continuance at that time. The purpose of a neighborhood meeting is not to check a box, but to begin, dialogue, meaningful discussion about a project. This is a rezoning request and a large project. We would hope a continuance would provide an opportunity for more meaningful discussion about our concerns. Briefly, our concerns are as follows. In the little green space that we see up in the top northeast corner, we would like to see a side yard setback so that the spacing between those 7 homes that are kind of in the green space is a little wider to reduce density, would be a request we would have. The tree line, which is below, you see it as it travels all the way down and then across. We would like to see fencing to avoid trespassing to be built and maintained by Lennar. Drainage, there's a field tile that runs all the way across the site that benefits our property and other properties. We recognize that it's not a rezoning issue, but we want to make an opportunity to make a record of the tile and make sure it's not damaged, and that the drainage during construction turns out to be in better like condition. We appreciate Mr. Tui's email to me this weekend saying that they plan to comply with the drainage ordinance, but we want to make sure that that ordinance is designed at build out, not during construction. So we just wanted to raise an issue. Buffering and trees, again, the same issue within the green space. Given the orientation of the homes, we would like to see enhanced buffering in that area, which could include tree lines, evergreens, and mounding. We have proposed language with respect to lighting, downcast lighting, so the lighting is not hitting our property and others. We appreciate that the homes are going to be single level and 1.5 level. We would ask that at least with respect to the 7 parcels that are immediately adjacent to our drive with the no trees, that those be single level only, not the single level with lofts. Again, we would expect to be able to work through these issues. Brian and I had some communication today, but it's very short. It's a major project. We don't think it needs to be rushed through. We'd ask for a brief continuance to allow us to negotiate these things, reduce them to writing, and our hope that Lennar shares our goal that we can stand before you and support the project at another meeting. So, thank you.
All right. Next person, Jim Book.
Commissioners, my name is Jim Buck. I live at 5285 Oak Knoll Drive, which is immediately on the north side of this development in Cardinal Point. I'm in favor of this development for a couple of reasons. I know that the area, I learned tonight that it's still zoned to be residential. I think from my perspective and for people that live on that area, we want it to be residential. I respect the need to make sure the layout and protecting the environment with making sure we get good drainage and is all part of that development plan. But I really encourage to move forward with this project in order to make sure it's residential. I don't want to see come back here in the future and have a petitioner make the approach to make commercial right across from my home. So that's my short plea, is to approve this and resolve some of these configuration issues that we have.
Looks like Barb Hiddy? Okay. All right. And Nicole Mitchell? Okay. Well, Zach Sanders, do you want to speak? I just want to make sure. Okay. Well, then Kevin Mitchell. Okay. It's like, I can't read the first name, but Ramsey, last name.
My name is Bev Ramsey. I live at 5435E 750S, and my backwoods will be the one that's going to be connected to that. And I've lived out there for 50 years, thinking I was going to be in the country, and now the city's coming to me. We've already got houses across the road, and the main thing that my neighbor Zach is concerned about is the drainage, because that will affect where I live, where Kevin lives, where the Hiddies live, and that will affect all of us, and we certainly don't need any bad drainage. So I just feel really, really bad that the city's coming out to me when I really like being in the country.
And then I have Peter. Okay.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Peter Yindersalls, and I live at 10990 North County Road 900 East in Brownsburg. But the explanation, if you come down Wolf Road, where Wolf Road turns, that's my property right there, that field. It'd be the south side of the development. Well, if you came down Wolf Road, you'd run into it if you didn't turn. Well, I rent my ground out, and the farmer that comes in there farms it. He comes in on Wolf Road. So is he going to be allowed to come down the new development? And the second question, like the speed limit's 50 miles an hour on that road. So if they came down Wolf Road to that there's two curves within 100 feet. So if you're doing 50 miles an hour, it's going to make if you had 350 people trying to get out of that place, it'd make kind of be a mess. I think.
All right.
You kind of understand what I'm...
Yeah, no.
All right. Thank you.
See if you had other questions.
That's it.
Okay. I don't have any others listed here, but is there anyone in the room that would like to speak? You're okay. You can still speak. Just a reminder, state your name and address.
My name is Doug Everett. I live at 4077 South 250 East in Lebanon. But could you back this up 2 slides? That one that shows a lot bigger picture, or down 2? The other way, I'm sorry.
This one?
No. It was the one that...
The overlay?
Yeah, right there. So we actually farm the farm that's just on the west side. We farmed that for over 100 years in our family. And also, we're south on Wolf Road. That last little white piece you see down there after all those curves, we farm that. So our major concern, we're not against development. We just want to know how can we get to our farm. Because if my 18-foot combine probably won't work coming down Indiana Boulevard. So how are we going to act? I don't see how you can vacate Wolf Road with a subdivision. Also, I don't know if you realize it, but the next curve, there's a landscaping company right there, Brownsburg Landscaping. I'm just estimating they probably have 20 to 30 trucks a day that go north with trailers and trees and landscaping. So I wanted to make sure you were aware of that. And then also on the west side of the farm, our Z field, we call it, we have drainage every 100 feet. So we want to make sure any drainage they do, they don't tear up any of our drainage. Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room that would like to speak on this item? Okay, is there any online that would like to speak on this item? Okay. All right, last chance. Anyone? All right. I'll close the public hearing then at 7:25. Petitioner, you have a chance to address the comments and questions.
Thank you, members of the commission. With your permission, I'll maybe start backwards from the two gentlemen that spoke about getting their equipment and farming the site. I think it might be helpful if we first look at Wolf Road now. So the road they're speaking of, members of the commission, is this road right here. It comes down like so, jogs right here by one of the owner's houses, almost a 90-degree turn, and comes like so, and then comes down here. So it's a pretty crooked road right now, and I'd call it an old county road. What Lennar proposes to do, of course, with Whitestown's approval, is to transition that crooked small county road to a more direct route to the south with a brand new road that would meet the county standards. And as to whether those folks could use that to bring their equipment down, absolutely. That'll be a public road dedicated to the community, and we think it actually provides a better surface, a more direct route north and south. So we believe we've addressed those issues. As to the drainage issue, that is a very important issue. It's one that actually probably gets more precisely addressed at the platting time, but we reached out to our engineer, Brian Brown at Steppenworth Engineering, and he advised this afternoon in an email to me that the drainage in this site generally flows from flows this way towards the west, and there are tiles in here. And what he writes is that the site generally flows from the east to the west, and the properties in question, he was referring to the Sanders property and the other folks right along here, he believes it comes in two locations. It comes here in the middle of their lot and down at the southwest corner and heads that way. And they're aware that there are drainage tiles in there. And what their procedure is to capture and encompass any of those existing farm tiles and then put them into our system. And all that off-site water will be passed through our system so as not to block off our neighbor's drainage. And if it would happen that we would cut a tile, then we'll address that and fix it during construction so that their drainage is not blocked. In general, this should improve the drainage of this area, according to Brian Brown, the Director of Water Resources for Steppenworth. Again, that's not a precise answer, but it's something they've looked at already. As to the city coming to the country, I recognize that. Something's going to happen to this site, and this seems like a reasonable use. It's an open farm field now. It's as Mr. Barker said, at some time in the next 10 years, maybe 15, whatever, there may be a pretty significant road running along the west side of this site. So growth is going to come to this area. I feel pretty certain about that. And it's already happened with the Golf Club of Indiana. It seems to me that between the Golf Club of Indiana and the other gentleman who spoke up here, the desire is for this to be residential as opposed to some other kind of use in the future. So I think that cuts in favor of the proposed rezoning. As to our most immediate neighbor, who Mr. Rodolfo represents, this is an interesting situation. Their house is that structure right there, and it's a two-story house. It's a very pretty home. And for you that are turning this way, that's the house right there. The address also says that there's a concrete business right there. I'm sure it's been there for years, and I know the Sanders family has a fine reputation for concrete work. That area right there looks to me to be part of their business. There's some structures, some barns, some pole building kind of things. There's some equipment right there. So that's the border along our eastern border is the Sanders home, which is two-story, and which also has their concrete business. What Lennar is proposing is in this area, there's only about, 5 or 6 homes, somewhere between 3 and 5 homes that actually border their homes. And our homes would at most be 1.5 stories. They have a two-story home. So it won't be a case where we would be looking down into their home. Their home is actually bigger than ours. And this green area here, that distance between, there's their home and the backs of our homes, that distance ranges somewhere from approximately about 150 feet and tapers down to about 50 feet. And in that area, that will be a green area maintained by the homeowners association where there won't be any improvements in there. There won't be pickleball courts. There won't be playgrounds. There won't be swimming pools. That'll just be a natural green area to serve as a buffer between our development and the Sanders home. We think that's a sufficient screen between single-family homes bordering their single-family home and their business. That screen, I think, is in excess, significantly in excess of what the UDO requires, because I don't think the UDO requires any buffer between residential neighborhoods. That makes sense. You'd have residential lots backing up to residential lots. But they've accommodated that in this green area. As to communication, Mr. Rodolfo is a fine lawyer. His clients are fine people. We actually met back in December. And at that December meeting, we had it at the Golf Club of Indiana. And I gave everybody at the meeting my office phone number, my cell phone number, my email address. And Mr. Blackburn gave everybody his email address. And we said, look, folks, if you've got questions about this, get a hold of us. We're willing to talk about it. And we sent out 61 notices to people that are on the notice list for this. So we had a neighborhood meeting. We sent out 61 notices. And I didn't hear from anybody until last Friday night about 5 o'clock. And I understand, it's holidays, people get busy, that sort of thing. But we have been available to talk about these issues, and we were conscious of them. That's why we reached out to our engineer to figure out, okay, have you thought about the drainage? And they had. They knew it went from the Sanders property onto our property. They're understandably concerned about us blocking that. We've thought about that, and that's not going to happen. And our drainage plans will have to be approved by Mr. Barker and the town engineers. And once we file those, of course, those will be public documents. They can come look at those and weigh in on our drainage plans. So in summary, get to the summary page here. We would respectfully suggest to the Plan Commission that this rezoning is compatible with the proposed uses outlined in the Special Area 8, and that this zoning and development would provide quality single-family homes targeted to active adults. They'll be eligible for a social membership at the Golf Club of Indiana, and the fellow in charge of that, Jeff Rubenstein today, told me that they're very much in favor of this. It'll substantially increase the tax base of the Whitestown community. Your staff has looked at this petition, and suggests that it does comply with the decision criteria for rezoning, and they've recommended approval. With that, we would respectfully ask for your favorable consideration, and if we can answer questions, we'll certainly try to. Thank you again for your time this evening.
All right. I will open it up to the commission for questions and comments. You might as well come on back up. I'm going to go on one, the most recent one, that it will be a public road. What are the widths of that road? Because I'm thinking farm equipment going up and down that road through a subdivision.
Yeah, so it'll meet our minimum subdivision standards. So it will likely be nearly 8 feet wider than the existing road. But obviously, a subdivision road is different than a county road. So that's typically, off the top of my head, I believe our back of curb to back of curb is 28 feet, if memory serves me correctly.
Okay.
I think the problem with that, though, is your farm equipment is 18 to 20 feet at least wide. And then if you have homes all along that road, you have one car parked on the road, you're not
That's-
getting a tractor through.
That's where my mind was going, cars parked
At
along
all.
the street.
I mean, I live on 300. We own farm ground. The tractor has a hard enough time getting through on a main road with no cars parked on it. You're going to take it through a subdivision. It's a little dicey.
And then I also see that road goes right around
Clubhouse.
the clubhouse there. So with if there's any event happening in that clubhouse or people at the park, that just seems like a little bit of a challenge there.
That was going to be one of my main comments too. While I appreciate the fact that you're not cutting anybody off from any property per se, having grown up in a farming community, family farmed, all that stuff, there's no way in the world that I would ever want to drive a tractor through a neighborhood. If you get, as other people have said, if you get one car parked on the street, you're in trouble. I mean, the neighborhood that I live in, if you got cars parked on both sides and they're any distance away from the curb, it's hard enough for a fire truck to get through, let alone a tractor or combine. Nobody's going to want, not to mention residents during harvest time, planting time, they're not going to want farm equipment driving through their neighborhood just as an access road at all hours of the night, because we all know that during those times when the weather's right, you got to work. With regard to some of the properties over on the east side, it appears that you, in a roundabout way, kind of carved out a little bit of a berm, but then once you get back into the tree line, that the property line basically goes to, for the parcels, go to the property line. Unless there's a reason, I'd really like to see that common ground sliver kind of continue on around the neighboring properties if possible. That's all I got for right now, but I'm sure something else will come up. I gotta look back at my notes.
But kind of on that same notion, that northeastern portion, I mean, would you be open to, because I didn't hear, I heard what you explained, but we've done this with other rezones, fencing, kind of, at the very least, at least down at what, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Basically, the part that borders their home, maybe to the extent of that whole green space on that side.
If I'm hearing you right, you're talking about in this area right in here?
Yes.
Yep, okay, got it. I understand. Okay.
At the very least, I ideally would be just to be uniform all the way down that side.
Right.
Sorry, I jumped in on, but you were talking about that buffer area, so. I jumped in before anybody else.
One of the questions that I have here, as the councilperson for District 4, it is entirely my district. One of the things that my constituents are always concerned about is traffic congestion. And I see that we have the one ingress and egress at the north there right off 750. And I do see where it connects to that other property at the south there. And I see the one road that right around the border of the homeowner that we just discussed, and that road just kind of stops just to the east there.
Yes.
Does that connect to anything later in the future? And I know that we're talking about Ronald Reagan that will be here tomorrow, right, Todd?
Tomorrow.
Yeah. Just wondering, and I was looking at the public comments there as well. There was a discussion about traffic studies. Are you planning to do those traffic studies on your own? Are you working with the town? I guess it's like 3 questions in one.
It's okay. Got it. I think I understand it. We actually have done a traffic study, and we submitted to the town. It concluded that this additional traffic, the intersections that it examined up on the 750 and the entrance into the subdivision, and then 3 or 4 other intersections that concluded that with this traffic, they would all operate at acceptable levels of service with this number of homes being added. And it took into account this added traffic and expected growth in this area. As to that stub street to the east there into the woods, I think that is done, I believe at the request of the town's planners to make sure if something happens to the east that we'd have a connection so you could go through the neighborhood. The neighborhoods could go through, connect to each other without having to go up to the county roads, I think is the thought there. And you are right, there is a connection at the north end and a connection at the south end. I suspect they did not show a connection to Ronald Reagan because of it's probably going to be a very limited access road and not looking for traffic to just jump on. I don't know that, but that's would be my guess on that. As to this concern, a very valid concern about the farm traffic, certainly we could, and I know the response to this, but you can certainly make no parking along that street, along that area, if that's a concern, or parking on one side of the street. And I appreciate the difficulty in enforcing things like that.
Yeah, if I may add, along Wolf Road, we have larger setbacks for those homes because we were obviously concerned about people parking on Wolf Road with the farm traffic. So those driveways will be longer than our standard 25-foot driveway, probably going to be able to accommodate 2 cars in the garage and then 4 in each driveway as an attempt to reduce that parking on that street. There's also been other conversations, but we're open to any ideas of, how to best work that road because we do know it is a challenge. So, but that's the current plan right now.
And do we have a parking area in the amenity area?
Yeah.
So for that pool and those pickleball courts, there'd be separate parking in that amenity area for those folks? Ideally, we'd like them to walk to those community and use the trails and the sidewalks, but there is a parking area. But we're aware of these concerns. Did I miss, was there anything? Oh, as to fencing, can I think about that a little bit? I think I understand what you're asking us to think about is run a fence along here that would come all the way down to here, and then if I heard Mr. Snowberger run that fence along there, is that what I'm?
I think that was all. I was kind of more referring to there's, as you come from north to south along that east portion, there is a bit of a green space between the back of the properties.
Right.
If it was me personally, I would honestly like to kind of piggyback on Andrew too and try to combine the two. I would like to see that green space, to try to get, homes farther away from adjoining property owners, as well as, look at fencing, like Andrew said.
And that's, you're saying would be here and then come over here in this area too?
Yeah.
Okay, I understand it.
And, to kind of touch on Mr. Is it Rodolfo? Did I get that right? His point, I think as a commission, it's my opinion that we've seen a lot of good things come from neighborhood meetings. It wasn't that long ago that there was projects that would come before us and there was no neighborhood meeting. They'd have a neighborhood meeting, and I would say 98% of the issues pretty much got ironed out. This one could be an issue of timing with the holidays and the time of year that everybody's busy. It sounds like there's still some details that could be worked out, and I think you even admitted that, the fencing is something that needs to be looked at. I feel like some of the requests that have been brought up are some things that need to be looked at.
Okay.
That's just my opinion so far.
Okay.
I did have a comment. I think just in general, the residential use is good. The concept of connecting it to Cardinal Point's good. I did notice that the roads don't align. So Champions Drive from the north doesn't align to the south. If the kind of the intent is to kind of create two separate communities that kind of feel like one. I can imagine some older active adults grabbing a golf cart and trying to cross the street there, especially since the golf trail goes straight to the clubhouse. So that there might be a need to align those more so for safety for folks that want to cross the street. And then obviously this is just a rezone and this is more of a conceptual layout, but that would, generally speaking, reconfigure a lot of things on site if you did that.
Sorry, the public hearing's closed.
The reason for the alignment of the entries currently is because of existing power pole locations. So on this side of East County Road 750 South, from Cardinal Point's entrance is an existing power pole. So, for fear of relocating one and then, that turns into multiples, we thought it would be a better plan and more cost-effective to just offset them.
I have a couple of questions. How many homes are you looking at total to go in this?
360.
Okay, and we're kind of predicting, I'm guessing, to have none that will have children.
I wouldn't want to say that, Ms. Hancock.
Okay, well, that's because this is also another subdivision that will fall into the Lebanon School Corporation, and the addition that they've just done is already full.
Yeah.
So I don't know where we're going to put any more kids from into the Lebanon school system. Have you had that conversation with them?
We have not, but we certainly can. Our anticipation is there'd be very few children. The homes are designed not to do that, but I would not want to represent to this commission that, we just had a 30-year-old move back in our home, so there's some joy in that, and there's this is interesting in that, but so I don't want to say that there'd be no kids. We think there'd be very few kids.
Okay. So you're looking at if you get the correct zoning that you're wanting, approximately two homes an acre.
That's right.
You're looking about half-acre lots? Or are you factoring that in for your green space?
That's the gross density.
Okay, so approximately how many homes per acre are you looking at putting if you take out the green space?
I don't know.
You know how big your lots are? Because, I'm
Yeah,
thinking
take.
low density is not R3.
I agree with that. I think it's called moderate density, although 2.1 homes per acre in a global sense is considered pretty low density. The lots range as a minimum, they're about 8,000 square feet for some, whatever, take 65 times 130, that's one minimum size, or 56 times 130. So those are 6, 7, 8,000 square foot lots.
Okay.
Some would be bigger up in the corners. I can see those might be 9 or 10,000 square foot lots, but I don't have the exact sizes, and I don't know if you take out the common areas what the density is. But across the overall site, which is how I understand density is calculated in Whitestown, it's about 2.11 homes per acre.
Because I know that one of the things that some of us have pushed is that the farther you get away from the main part of town, the bigger the lots are. And I don't really necessarily see that with this. I do feel the concerns about those that border that northeast corner. Because one of my biggest concerns is how do you keep people from going into their woods and doing something they're not supposed to be doing?
I
We
suppose.
have crime, unfortunately, and people and kids like to sneak off into other people's properties, especially into heavily dense woods.
I suppose that fencing might address that issue. Yeah.
Okay.
Cheryl, to answer your question, an 8,000 square foot lot, which he referenced, works out to be approximately 0.18 acres.
Wow, okay.
We have done this in the past, as we've moved along a rezone recommendation too. We can put a stipulation if they're saying 2.1 homes per acre, we can limit them to that as a condition. So they don't come back later and say
Right.
more. But I don't know, Lauren, do you, Chris?
Yeah, I have a question. What is your plan for crossing 750 South for your golf carts?
I think you've talked about that.
Yeah, we're kind of looking to the city staff and the NDOT to speak on that. We've talked about doing a specific cart crossing that would more align with Cardinal Point's entrance there, with just some like lighting and those sorts of things, striping and whatnot. But we're open to any and all ideas. We do recognize that is a very important issue.
Yeah, someone that's in public safety, a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit zone, and you have multiple golf carts crossing, probably alcohol involved, on a golf course, that the risk is extremely high. Places in like Carmel or, Fishers, they have their cart paths will run underneath major thoroughfare roads. Is that something that you guys could work into your plans where you would go under the roadway to eliminate any pedestrian or golf cart traffic for severe crashes and accidents?
To be honest with you, yes, we can look at it, but without having done this in the past, I have no clue what the cost would be, implication of that. So yes, it's something we can definitely look at, but we would just have to look at it from an overall project basis.
I know talking with Shri as a part of the review process, the town engineer, one of the discussions was, whether or not we would have, an option for the push button activated type crossing that would have lights similar to what we recently did along South Main Street and Albert S. White there by the library as possible options of to help improve that crossing.
Any other?
I don't have anything further to add. I share a lot of the same concerns as Cheryl, especially with the density. I want to make sure I'm not opposed to the project. I just want to make sure that we are balancing the town out as we're doing it. We have a lot of beauty in our community with having the farmers here, and and combining the city at the same time. I just want to make sure that we're doing that in a smart way so that we can still reside together. I don't want to push anyone out in this process. So that's important to me, along with it looks like a lot of homes shoved in there. And when I think of active adult, I'm like daydreaming. I'm thinking, oh, my kids are gone and I'm going to move to this active community, and I would kind of want more green space and more things to do if I moved in an active community. So maybe something to consider with this project.
And I mean, I think to me, it's starting to sound like there's maybe a few more things to address. I definitely feel that this is a good use, but I feel like there's still some items that need to be worked out before we move forward. I feel strongly, it's a public road and it's going to be part of the subdivision, but realistically, farm equipment's gonna come through there. So I think that needs to be addressed somehow, some way. And no, just saying no parking, I don't know that's gonna address that, because then it's gonna require enforcement, which our officers probably have a lot more things addressed than parking. I feel like the fencing needs to be addressed, the buffer, along that side as well. Did I miss anything? I guess where I'm going at is I feel like this is I would make a motion myself. I'm not making it yet, but if anybody else wants to continue this.
Just a really quick question. I'm not an urban planner, but with regards to that, the road for the farm equipment to come through, I see that we have the concept for Ronald Reagan. Is there any way that a road could come along the western side there and then across the south to the property down there, or does it have to come north-south there through the development?
The western side of this property is actually wetlands. So like where the largest detention pond, well, one of the two largest detention ponds in the northwest side of the site, that's kind of starts to be wetland area, which is why it was avoided in the conceptual plan.
Understood.
But yeah, I mean, we're definitely open to ideas. I mean, obviously we're going to have a lot of farming community in this area, and it's super important to accommodate everybody. So yeah, I mean, we've been thinking through it in our heads, short of just building like a 50-foot wide, highway through the neighborhood. I don't know what the best solution is, but we can certainly work with staff to iron out that further, because it is an important issue to us as well.
Well, to Councilman Thomas's point of maybe there's an access road for the farm equipment to get through somehow on,
I'm not sure what the best way to
Yeah.
do that, but there's a solution somewhere.
I would probably second Mr. McGee's sentiment. It sounds like that there's still some work to be done. We brought up fencing. It was said you guys needed to kind of look at that. I don't know that we're going to get satisfactory answers today. It also sounds like the residents would like a little more time to have some additional dialogue with you guys. Hopefully, now that the holidays are past, things can be a little more productive. So it's not only, directed towards the petitioner, but also all the residents who took time out tonight. I mean, if we're going to give the opportunity to continue this, hopefully you guys can, make your concerns heard and hopefully come to somewhat of a mutual agreement.
I mean, I would definitely agree. I mean, there's definitely some things that need to be fixed. I mean, I personally would like to see it more dense. I'd like to see it less homes. Maybe one of those options is just no homes along that main stretch. Then we can guarantee there'd be no parking. That would help. I mean, a 0.1 acre of a lot is not a very big lot at all. The further out as you get out of town. So I'd like to see some of those lots become bigger. And I know that that's something that we've been talking to some other developers about doing, is making those bigger lots the farther you get out on the outskirts of the town limit.
If I may to that point, I do understand the concern with the lot size. It is a delicate issue with this, the intent of our use for this community, given the active adult and the empty nester. A lot of times you have people downsizing, and a lot of our clientele is, they want smaller house, smaller yard, less maintenance. And so, I would say that's the counter piece of, why it's designed the way it is currently.
I guess I had one other question too, just that popped into my head. I noticed there's essentially kind of an X that goes through the property. Is that due to utilities? Is that what that is?
That's correct. As it is north to south, I believe that's an easement. And then as it is east to west, I believe those are existing power lines.
Okay.
Well, I just remembered one thing for what you said. And here's who you're targeting it to, but it's not restricted.
Correct.
So realistically, people could move in with families based on the sizes of the square footage you said.
Mhm.
So I think a discussion, you need to have it, because what I heard was there was no discussion with Lebanon schools. I think a discussion with Lebanon schools needs to happen before coming back before this commission as well.
Okay.
Just to talk about buffering again, I think you might want to consider something along that Reagan corridor with the back of those homes. That'll be a very, yeah. I don't know if you could do like a berm or something.
Yeah, it's hard to, kind of conceptualize on this plan, but where you see those little like almost flowery things along there, there's actually, that is a increased setback, and then there's planned mounding and landscaping in that area.
I'll go ahead and make a motion then. I will make a motion that we continue this to and I'll put our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is for February, but I'll say it that way because for some reason it has to be canceled if we don't have quorum. So our next regularly scheduled meeting.
A second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's continued. February something, Todd?
I think it's the 10th.
Thank you, commissioners.
February 10th.
Yes, it is the 10th.
Everyone out here that in the audience too, February 10th. All right. We'll move on to, see some clearing.
I think we're all gonna lose.
We'll hold for just a second while the room clears some.
I guess by default, Andrew gets it.
And I would respectfully ask if you're going to have conversations, if you could continue out in the hallway, please and thank you. I don't think so.
You gotta go deeper into the mic.
All right. Okay. We're going to move on to items D and E. There's one presentation, but still will require two motions. PC 24-051-CP concept plan and PC 24-052-DP development plan, Anson Office Building. Petitioner, if you want to state your name and address.
Thanks for your time this evening. I'm actually Nick Schmidt. I work with Tom Martin. I'm the engineer and surveyor with Fritz Engineering on this job. This is just currently it's a vacant outlot, part of the Anson development. It's off Perryworth Road, kind of west of that Wood Springs Hotel. This is currently zoned for this project. We're not seeking any variances. It's just a 8,500 square foot office building complex with obviously adjacent parking lot. We're proposing a drive off of the private drive off Perryworth Road there that goes to the hotel. Planning requested a right-in, right-out farther north at the northwest corner, which we're working through and is shown on the plans. Other than that, I believe it's a pretty straightforward job. We've addressed all comments, I believe, with planning and utilities. We just got comments back from county surveyor for drainage Thursday, but they're minor. We've met their ordinance. It's just notes and stuff, which we'll get back to them by the end of the week. So at this point, just looking for your guys' okay and final approval on the project.
Okay. Staff report.
This request includes both phases of our development plan process, both the concept plan and development plan. So essentially we allow kind of simultaneous review of that when lots are previously existing or part of kind of an overall master project. This is an existing lot there for redevelopment, and is, yes, just that commercial office space and parking. Staff in the tech committees have reviewed this and believe they are in compliance with the UDO for this request. We are recommending approval of both the concept plan and the development plan for this project. And included in your packet are again, the recommended motions for this case. I'll answer any questions you might have for staff.
Okay, thank you. I will open the public hearing for this item at 8:06. Did not get anyone signed up to speak on this item prior to the meeting. If there's anyone here that would like to speak on this item, now's your chance. All right, seeing none in the room. Is there anyone online for this item? Thank you. All right. I'll close the public hearing at 8:07. Questions, comments from the commission?
I have two questions. Did you say, is it going to be mostly like medical office, or is it just strictly office in general?
Yeah.
I saw four, I guess, front doors.
4 spaces, yeah. So it'll be, right now we have an LOI from a dentist that's interested in 1 suite, a real estate company in another suite, and then the other part's still vacant right now, but interest, no other sign. So I would say general office, not necessarily, all one tenant, so.
Wonderful. And then I guess my second question is, on the south, I'm guessing that's an exit onto the little road that goes back to
Private
the hotel.
drive.
Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
The hotel's the only property back there.
Right.
So it would just be us in that hotel.
It's hard to tell from the site plan, but it looks like this right-in, right-out's extremely close to the roundabout. Is there really a need for a second entrance with parking lot
That was
small?
requested by planning, so
Okay.
we followed through with their request. Our original site plan was just off of the private drive,
Okay.
and so we worked with planning on that, so. And we can work with them however we need to for that. That was, I think, we're still on some negotiations on figuring that out, because right now we're not sure who owns that property. I did the survey, and right now it's, NDOT supposedly owns that, but I don't think that's the case. There's some issues with that right away in that area.
Yeah, it looks like it's a remnant from when the highway cut through there, that little
And I checked the
triangle.
grants, it doesn't go there. Probably during purchasing, they didn't want that remnant.
Any other questions, comments from the commission? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve PC 24-051 CP Anson Commercial Building Concept Plan, as presented and described based on the staff report, staff recommendations, and the submitted findings of fact.
Second.
So a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, concept plan is approved. Entertain a second motion.
I'll make a motion to approve PC 24-052 DP Anson Commercial Building Development Plan, as presented based on the staff report, staff recommendations, and the submitted findings of fact.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, development plan is approved as well.
Thank you.
Have a good one. All right. And then item F, PC 24-053-DP Development Plan, Solstice Apartments. Is the petitioner here? Oh.
Hi, good evening. Give me 1 second to plug this in. My name is Brian Sheward. I'm a civil engineer at Kimley Horn & Associates, offices at 500 East 96th Street, Suite 300, Indianapolis, Indiana. With me tonight is Mr. Clayton Pace. Clayton's here. Drove up from the south today. He's with Denton Floyd Real Estate, which is a multifamily developer based out of southern Indiana in Jeffersonville. Let's see if I can get this to presentation mode for you all. Okay. So what we're here tonight requesting is development plan approval on a project that we had brought for concept plan approval back in, I believe it was November of last year. I think most of you are here for that. This is sites located here in red. As you can see, to the northwest is the cemetery. That's off Indianapolis Road. And then to the south is the Nice Apartments. That's the Mill House, market rate apartments there to the south, sandwiched in between I-65 to the east and Indianapolis Road to the west. And I did want to point out this site, which is about 20.7 acres, is zoned mixed-use core. To the west, the cemetery is industrial, and then to our south and west is the general business zoning classes. What we're bringing tonight is a multifamily project, and that's a by right use within a mixed-use core zoning. This shows the site plan. Essentially, the elements of the site plan are there's 12 proposed apartment buildings. Total 288 units is a mix between different bedroom units, and as well as a clubhouse, which is located closest to the entry off Indianapolis Road on the southwestern side, and a maintenance building that's also near the front, which I'll zoom in on here momentarily. The maintenance building will house maintenance equipment as well as a dog wash, as well as for residents if they'd like to wash their car too. So it's got a pull through as an amenity to the development. The clubhouse behind it, as you can see in this down in the corner, has a pool. I'll have some pictures of that as an example, but it's a really nice layout for amenities for the units. And then in the northeast corner is where the dumpster enclosure is, and that's got a masonry enclosure screening the view from the interstate to the east. As you can see here, there's 2 detention ponds. They work in tandem for the detention for the site. And the main entrance, or the entrance to the property, is down here on the southwest side. You can see we have a relatively narrow frontage to Indianapolis Road that we had talked about at the concept plan stage. Real quick, from a utility standpoint, electric, gas, telecom, sanitary sewer, and water all come from the frontage along Indianapolis Road on the west side. And then the entire site drains in a southeast direction down to this corner where I note the stormwater outfall, and that's where there's a roadside ditch along I-65 that currently drains the undeveloped site. Summary, I've touched on this already. We are in compliance with all of the requirements. The density on this is approximately 13.9 units per acre, and we're allowed to go up to 15. So that falls within the limits of what's allowed. And we sit at 1.7 parking spaces per unit, which is right in the middle of the allowable minimum and maximum per the ordinance. Architecturally, there's 2 different apartment building types, a building A and a building B. One slightly larger than the other, but each are 3 stories tall. You can see the one on the top is type A, that has a few more units than the bottom, which is slightly shorter as a building. And then the clubhouse, in kind of a traditional look, pitched roof as you come in. And then on the bottom, that's the maintenance building where you can see there on the left, residents will be able to pull their car in. as well as an overhead door so you can store lawnmowers and other equipment for the maintenance. This is a rendering showing the mix of the different materials proposed. And I believe this is a type A building, so the longer of the two. This is the imagery of what the clubhouse would look like. So this would be what you would see from Indianapolis Road as you drive by. And then this is the back of the clubhouse, which has a whole host of different things, from a putting green to fire pits to I think there's cornhole to the pool, quite a few different things and cabanas all throughout. I'm sure Clayton could speak to that if you have specific questions. Staff, we have worked back and forth. There was really not very many comments that we received when we submitted, but we addressed those and resubmitted. From the staff report, they recommend approval. We did, similar to the last applicant, receive our drainage comments last Thursday. So I've been talking with Carol and Carrie already on that and anticipate resubmitting later this week, which may take us to next Tuesday, depending on their ability to look at it on Friday. So if it doesn't go to Drainage Board on Tuesday next week, it'll be next month. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Staff report.
Thank you. And before we do, Brian, I know, before I get into that, I know at the concept plan, there was discussion about the entrance.
Yes.
And your conversations with the fire marshal. If you
I would be happy, thank you.
Yep.
Certainly didn't mean to skimp on that. So I did work back and forth with Steve Milstead on this, and actually there's two items. One was the entry, there was some discussion around the turn lane. So the applicant, Denton Floyd, didn't put up any issue with that. So a northbound right turn lane is shown, and it goes just off the page. I have a PDF. Let me see if I can get that open. The challenge with this narrow frontage we have is as you go to the south, there, and this, bear with me, it's black and white here. I want to pull up Google. Our entry roughly lines up with where that entry is today. It's an unimproved kind of gravel entry that you can see off the road, which is roughly aligned with that existing structure there. As you go to the south, there is an entry to the Nice Apartments. It's kind of a secondary entry, I guess I would say. And then just south of that is a driveway into the town's sanitary lift station. Getting a northbound right turn lane proposed, I worked back and forth with Shree on the best way to kind of split the needle on that. And what we landed on, which if you bear with me, where my hand is here is the entry to the lift station. We get a 100-foot taper, which is standard as we approach that Nice entryway, and then we have about 165 feet. It was really what was left of a northbound right turn lane as you approach the entry. And then to what we had come to a compromise with Steve, just given our limited frontage and our ability, we can't really have two curb cuts in that close proximity along our frontage. So a strategy we've done in other communities, and Steve and I had talked about, was doing a boulevard-style divided entry. So you that's what that is in the middle. This oval is an elevated median, and then on the outbound, an outbound lane. So theoretically, if there were to be an accident at the entry, it would block one of the entry drives, not both. We also talked as well, if I go back to this, about the fact that there is I'll call it an unimproved gravel drive that the cemetery appears to be using to have a storage pile of some kind in the back. We don't take any issue if the fire department were to use that in the event of a major emergency, but we don't have a formal easement nor feel it's necessary to get a formal easement from the cemetery as our neighbor, if that makes sense. So Steve, not to put words in his mouth, but seemed content with the divided entry when we worked through that with him.
Thank you for expanding on that. So I know that was one of the kind of remaining items that the commission had discussed as a part of the concept plan. So I wanted to make sure we hit on that. So this is a permitted use within the zoning classification that is out there. for this site. It has been through, as you stated, the TAC committee for review, and the committee has found that they are in compliance with the UDO, and are recommending approval of the development plan for this project. Again, in the staff report, we do have the proposed motion language, and I'll attempt to address any questions you might have.
All right. Thank you. I will open the public hearing for this item at 8:21. Do not have anybody that signed up before the meeting to speak on this item. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this item? You can come up. Just a reminder to state your name and address.
My name's Hans Weber. I live at 7812 Great Eagle Drive, Zionsville, Indiana. My biggest concern with this is traffic, especially you live in Eagles Nest. It's already hard enough up and down Lafayette Road, especially with church traffic. If anything goes in across the Rex, like there's planned, it's going to create even more issues. There's any accidents on 65, this backs it up. I just don't think this is a great use for this piece of property, especially with traffic and congestion, because there's no way to extend the road or turn lanes or anything. So, and I've already seen just going up and down there, just within the Nice properties, there's issues with turning and stuff like that. It's just not safe, especially with anybody that runs, bikes, or anything like that. There's a lot of bikers and runners too. So I just don't think it's a wise idea and safe. So if they have a better idea for traffic, they need to come up with one. So that's all I have.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this item? All right. Seeing no one else in the room requesting to speak, is there anyone online requesting to speak for this item? All right. Then I will close the public hearing at 8:23. Petitioner, you can address comments.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the comment. I can speak from a number of years ago. We performed a traffic study for this corridor. It was for Danny Powers, who's not with the town anymore. He was a public works director at the time. It was at the time that the primary plat was being worked on for the Rex property across the street, or Mauer Commons, I think is what it was referred to then. As a part of that, the town did have intent to do potentially improvements to Indianapolis Road relative to that project, but obviously that project didn't move forward as was intended. But the traffic study that we did perform at that time had quite a bit of traffic generated, a lot more than what this site would generate here. And there were certainly improvements that were recommended, but it wasn't to widen Indianapolis Road to additional lanes. I think there was intent possibly in the future. Typically, a traffic study would discuss turn lane lengths or the need for a turn lane. And in this case, the applicant or my client had volunteered the turn lane, which I think is necessary and certainly consistent with the Nice project to the south. But as we went through the project back and forth, we weren't asked to prepare a traffic impact study specific for this project by staff, and that's typically how that comes up. So from our perspective, you will see increased traffic in the morning and in the evening with the 288 units. I would just say that it's zoned mixed-use core, which is a mix of either residential, multifamily, or commercial use. And I'm sure, can't put this on the town, but I would certainly think that if there's a development across the street as a part of the larger rec site, that a refresh of a larger traffic study would probably be required just to understand the impact of the regionally. Probably best I can do at this point, but happy to answer any questions that you have.
I will open it up for the commission. Questions, comments?
I have a couple. I'm glad that the fire marshal and you guys spoke. My biggest fear, because I've been on a scene of an apartment fire that has lasted literally all day long. My biggest fear is you have a fire in that very first apartment building.
On the southwest corner.
Yes. Nobody else is getting in or out of that complex. So if it goes through with the way this is, I would really recommend that you get with Lincoln Memorial Gardens, work out a plan that you can tie into that road and that they will be okay with it. Because we've done this on 2 other developments. Prairie Chase 2, we made them put in a second entrance off of Main Street. The Habitat for Homes, we made them tie into up to our Panther Park to where we could, in an emergency, if there was something at the entrance, we could get cars out onto the trail in Panther Park and back out. That's my biggest fear, only because I've seen it happen at Buckeyes Estates in Lebanon. Those people couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't get kids on and off the school bus. You couldn't get to and from work. That's my fear with that being the lot size. Do you expect to get any federal funding to build these? Okay. We've had that issue before in the past in the town. And then have you guys spoke with the Zionsville School Corporation?
No,
Because
we
this
have
will
not.
put a lot of kids, back into that school system that just redistricted.
No, we have not.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can, to answer your first comment about the access, there had been discussions, and I'm not an attorney from a legality standpoint, but it would be very easy to provide a gap in this corner where those two, so what you see here, I didn't mention this, these green bars, they're landscape mounds, 3 to 4 foot tall, not that large. That was actually a commitment to put those in as a part of the development of the property. So we're providing screening from our site, or I guess whichever way you look at it, there's screening between us. As that wraps around, it would be frankly fairly easy to provide a gap in that mound that may be traversable from a fire engine. It's just that I can't sit here today and say the fire department has a legal authority to drive through the cemetery. I would imagine if there was a fire, they would. But we can easily pull that back as a last case.
Either that or on the southeast corner, because I had mentioned this because the Nice Apartments, it's all a drive. It's all parking pretty much that borders, for the most part, your addition to the north. Dropping down a small, 6 foot, 7 foot path that could technically go from your drive, your parking, down into their parking. It's a little bit smaller probably of an area. I'm not quite sure. But that would be also maybe an alternative to look at.
We could certainly look at that. I think the challenge is they're a competitor, so I don't think they would be inclined to provide us a secondary entrance. Because we did consider that. And there is a drainage ditch, which you could certainly culvert if you needed to, but there's a drainage ditch that runs here that drains actually a good portion of, or not a huge portion, but some of the property across the street as well. And it's not a legal drain, it's actually the town of Whitestown drainage easement that straddles that on both sides. It's tough with that narrow entry that we were trying to, so the compromise, albeit a compromise, was trying to provide the divided entry, but we're happy to look at that further if we can.
Right. And I understand they're your competitor, but couldn't, an emergency access gate be put in place so you're not,
in my experience, if the town were to, Nate knows this, if the town were to make a comment, that would go a long way, I think. But if we came over and requested it, I don't foresee, possibly, but it would impact something on their site. So I think that's the challenge, to stand in a public hearing and say, yes, I think that's the challenge.
Yeah, it looks like you'd probably have to block off some of their parking, at least 2 stalls maybe.
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm just going to make a comment here because we jumped into questions. I didn't see history on this, Todd. Usually we put it, the site was previously industrial, correct?
Correct.
It was rezoned to the MU core.
Correct.
Did that. This is at least a better use than what maybe could have happened previously, since it was already zoned to be industrial. So I'm just making that comment there so we know what it was, what it could have been. There was discussions of what it could have been.
Mhm.
That project pulled out. So, I mean, between a cemetery and other apartments, my opinion, I see this as maybe as a compromise between those two uses. I don't know what else would be appealing to go back there. But I shared some of the concerns about the fire access at the previous meeting as well. So I'll just leave my comments, and if anybody else has.
Yeah, I'll note too, it was originally almost, I guess I'll say, the McLaren headquarters racing. Then it was almost a trailer parking lot. And then that was, I think the primary use as a trailer parking lot was written into the UDO as not an allowed primary use. And then it rezoned, and that's, what brought it forward. So there's a bit of a history here on, it could have been a trailer parking lot before it changed to mixed.
I'll let you say that now.
I will say that, yeah. And we had looked at a traffic study for a trailer parking lot as well.
And I guess I'm just asking for some clarification from Cheryl. A theoretical emergency access road that wherever that may be granted, whether it comes possibly from the cemetery, or if there's a way that something could be very nicely asked for NEAS to work together. Are you thinking for emergency vehicle access, or if there is an emergency at the entrance that there's a possibility that residents can still get in and out rather than being kind of shoehorned in? Or is it kind of a...
It'd probably be a little bit of both, but I think the big part would be getting the residents in and out. Because there's no way, most likely, your fire apparatus are going to be coming in the main entrance.
Because I know, like you said, there's been a couple instances where it's been we'll call it somewhat of a walking path almost, but an accessible drive, maybe not up to town standards for a drive, but it had a bollard in there that could be removed or something like that to be able to, in the event of an emergency, obviously. I would like to see that as a possibility, but I would hate to, at the same time, hinge the development and make that
The challenge, I think, with that is if it's an emergency access only for the use of the fire department, they'll want to put a gate and a Knox box on that, typically, meaning it would only be used for fire access to the site to preclude people on a regular basis using that entry. But the fire department only has Knox box keys to get in, so it wouldn't be able to be used by residents either. There may be a compromise in there. I guess I would, from my perspective, if there was a fire in that southwest corner, I think residents would either just go to the northern portion of the site away from the fire. They wouldn't necessarily hypothetically have to exit the development, but they could move away from that area. I think fire access using the Lincoln Gardens existing drive would probably, and that's what Steve and I had talked about, was probably most likely to happen if an event happened. So we had talked about, if necessary, moving the limits of that berm along that west side slightly to provide a gap.
Like move it north to make a gap?
Yeah, I can try to zoom in. I think it would be fairly easy.
Kind of like
it would basically just pull this back to here, so that you could come down this lane and essentially drive straight in potentially along that existing path. But this today, as far as I know, is not an access easement to this property from Lincoln Gardens, is my point. But practically speaking, if there was an emergency, I'm pretty sure that's what the fire department would probably be inclined to do.
Yeah, because I think if, you have a fire at 7 o'clock in the morning, most people have to leave to be at work between 8 and 9 o'clock. we've got to figure out a way to be able to get those people out. And if it is putting, a gate to where the fire department's already there, they could unlock the gate to allow those people, out through the cemetery. But otherwise that it would stay locked, if that makes sense. We've got to figure out, the just in case. I'd hate to wait till the day of and then it happen and then we have no plan in
I
place.
understand.
And then,
I guess I would respectfully ask, in working with Steve on this from a fire emergency access, we had kind of landed and he was comfortable with this, but we're happy to continue working on that. I think my ask would be that we've talked about a number of different possibilities for a secondary. We're happy to continue working with staff and Steve if there's a compromise to be had in that.
Yeah, it sounds like the main concern is more about the residents, not necessarily the emergency vehicles. I don't know if this is just possible. Obviously, I haven't seen your engineering plans, but that sidewalk that's on the north side of the parking stalls across from the maintenance building, I don't know if it's possible to turn that into like an asphalt path or something that connects to that stall there and
up to this direction.
Yeah, and not even that way. I think even if it tied back into the entrance, just to make a way around. If someone, say a fire truck pulled in and they went past the maintenance building and they're parked there at the first building, that blocks anybody from leaving, is I think what Cheryl's trying to point out. So if there was a way just to get cars out, that would solve the concern there.
So you're talking about kind of a bypass of sorts around. We get that. I mean,
I think that's generally speaking what she's trying to describe.
Well, on an apartment fire, you're going to have probably at least 3 to 4 fire apparatus, not including your medic or your police. I know when we did the Kansas State Fire up in Lebanon a couple years ago, we had 3 ladder trucks and 3 engines for one building. And it was only half of a building that was on fire, not including any police personnel that are there to, deal with traffic. So it's possible. We just have to figure out how you're going to fit that many, because it's so close to the entrance as well. If it was in the back of the back of the lot, it's not as big, because then you can line up your vehicles a little bit easier. Is the only water supply at the road?
I could make a note as well. So there's an existing billboard that's located in this southeastern corner, and you can kind of faintly see it here. I'll go to the Google here momentarily, but this is a part of a drainage easement to the town of Whitestown through here. So if I go back here, it's basically roughly in line with that gravel drive that you see. This is just stockpiled dirt back here in the corner. But that easement runs along this path. If there was and that's something that we had talked about, it's in the civil plans. But as a back emergency access, that could always be accessed as well and driven down that as a behind. I wouldn't say that it's paved to intended to be driven by residents, but Whitestown maintenance vehicles and Boone County maintenance vehicles can drive down that path along this property line and basically access this. What we've talked about with the billboard company is providing them an easement along our drive all the way down to the end, and that's what that dash line is coming around the corner. So it's an improved access for them to get to the billboard, but we're not intending to get rid of that gravel drive along the south property line too, which is another, and there's a slight gravel, unimproved kind of, you might even see it in street view here if I try to show, which will be another way for access down to that corner that comes along this path. So there's some pretty minor improvements, I'd say, either from a gravel standpoint to get in the back as well. But I don't know if I necessarily want to project that we would pave that to a drive standard.
Do you know how far that will be from the back of those buildings?
Yeah, it's a, I guess I don't have a measurement on here.
You don't have to be exactly.
Yeah,
Like 20 feet or
yeah, 20, 30 feet. I have the, maybe a more accurate look at that. I'd estimate 30 feet to the edge. The grading plan, you'll see there's some downsloping going on, where you can see we're up higher, which is typical in these developments, and then we slope down to get towards this edge where that drive is located on the property line.
Did you say Steve was the one who brought up the access to the cemetery?
Yeah, yeah, we had talked about that, and I had mentioned him that we've done a number of projects with the Zionsville Fire Department, or where they were the reviewing authority, and the divided entry is a method that the town of Zionsville uses for certain unique cases, so that's why I referenced it. Yeah.
Yes, I wouldn't want to hinder this. I don't know if this was Steve's idea originally. I mean, I think I feel comfortable approving it with the condition that there's, I won't say specific what, but that they work with fire to create an acceptable access point there.
Well, I mean, we're happy to continue working with Steve and come up with a plan that he's comfortable with, and I can tell you, it was a compromise, but he was comfortable with it, and we didn't receive any further comments in our TAC report.
And I think it's probably safe to say that you have an understanding of what the concerns are, what we would like to get. I'm kind of along the lines of with Andrew that, I would be comfortable approving this, under the condition that you continue to work with town planning staff, the fire department, just to try to see what we can make work within reason.
Sure.
I was going to go one step further to create an access point.
Okay.
Like, whether it's what you mentioned, going straight east.
Kind of a northwest direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where you were pointed going straight east, or what Nathan said, either option, but something. And it's not just put aside and said, yeah, we talked about it and nothing happens. That's what I mean.
I will say, if it is that option, you're going to need some kind of pavement, because a fire apparatus will not be able to drive over that ground.
Understood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple of different things you can do. There's a grass paved product, which looks like pavers or grass.
Sure. I just want to make sure.
We want to make sure it's aesthetically clean looking, and but we could work with staff on that.
Question that I had for you, a couple questions actually. The first one, I was looking through the staff report here, and number 2 of the suggested findings was talking about the development plan is managing traffic in a manner that promotes health, safety, convenience, et cetera, et cetera. Along that line, once again with the traffic study and with Mr. Weber's concerns, and also concerns that I've heard from other constituents there as well. That traffic study that you mentioned earlier, how long ago was that completed? Was that the one you said with Danny Powers?
Yeah. I'm gonna, don't quote me on this. I think it was either 2022 or 2023. I would say probably 2022. It was around the same time that we had the primary plat for the rec site.
Yeah, I was going to say probably 22.
Yeah.
So one of the things you brought up too is that we're probably due for a refresh of that, I think. Or how long does the traffic study last?
I mean, all of that depends on the volume of growth,
Right.
In the area. So, I mean, 2022 to 2023, I would not say it's, gravely old by any means. The numbers are going to, the trends are going to be relatively the same.
Yeah, and it's also what's plugged in as trip generation. So what?
Say it again?
The traffic study will generate recommendations based on whatever the development proposed is. So at that time, there was a mixed-use development across the street. There were 2 hybrid roundabouts along Indianapolis Road to a loop drive that went through. I don't know if the town's moved forward with anything in terms of, but as far as I'm aware, there's not any intent, at least at this time, moving forward to. So my suspicion is that once something is determined to come on the other side of the road, which is owned by the Town Redevelopment Commission, I believe, there'd probably be a requirement to do a traffic study or a traffic study update based on the primary plat of whatever's proposed to be developed. And then we'd have to look at, or someone would have to look at how much of each type of use is being proposed to get any value out of the study. So it's always a trick with traffic studies. You kind of need to tailor them to what's coming in order to get. But the traffic proposed in that was a lot more than what this project is proposing here.
So that previous traffic study, you said it was proposed more of an impact than what this project is proposed.
Correct.
And then that traffic study said that previous project would still be acceptable.
There weren't any improvements proposed there weren't any widening of Indianapolis Road recommended in that study.
From that
Still going to
study.
be a lane, one lane in each direction, and it's specific to the intersections that were proposed along Indianapolis Road. One was near the fire station, and one was to the south near the Nice Apartments main entrance. I think there was a main entrance in the middle, so there were improvements associated with those intersections, but not holistically the widening of Indianapolis Road to suggest that the capacity in the 2 existing lanes was insufficient, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. And from that last meeting in November, I remember the question was asked about how many units and cars were expected. It's still 288.
Same number of units, yeah.
And 476 parking spots.
Yeah, let me make sure I give you, it's 1.7 parking spots per unit. The town requires between 1.25 and 2 parking spaces per unit. Total of 490 parking spaces, which is a 1.7 ratio. It's pretty consistent with multifamily uses, yeah.
Okay. I just know that it's going to be, it is a headache. You said in the mornings and evenings is when you're anticipating more
Typically
traffic.
residential,
And
that's what you see, yeah.
Yeah, at that time, about, between 7 and about 9 or so, it can take a significant amount of time to get across that overpass there.
I can say usually from a traffic study perspective, it'll speak into whether or not you need it. If it's justified to have a turn lane based on the peak hour, and there's a couple different scientific things there, because we're volunteering the turn lanes, I'm not suggesting a traffic study would be, it just wasn't asked of us to do, because the verdict of that would normally be recommended turn lanes, which we're doing from the start.
Okay, so northbound is a right turn in, and then when you're exiting, it's a right turn out?
It's both. You can make an outbound. It's not right in, right out. It's a full access intersection. So you can come down.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Okay.
I apologize if this has been already answered before. I'm new to the commission here.
Sure.
What is the price point for the apartments?
Clayton, do you have a thought on what the typical?
Well, the standard saying is whatever market. Whatever it takes that area. Because.
Come on up so you can be on the mic.
Yeah, give me your address too.
Okay, Clayton Pace, Denton Floyd, 509 Spring Street, Jeffersonville, Indiana. It's market rate. It's so whatever the market is at that time. So it usually takes us about 13 months to get the first building online to start renting. So you're saying, what are you forecasting in 13 months that rent's going to be? So all I have is what comps are in that area, and they range anywhere from $1.40 a square foot to $1.75 a square foot. But obviously, you get the Nice Apartments, which is adjacent, and you have to be competitive with them.
So you would stay comparable to the Nice apartment?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Pardon me?
That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? council help me with this. So I'll make a motion to conditionally approve the plan subject to the following. Staff report and staff recommendations, the submitted findings of fact, and that the developer continues to work with Whitestown Fire in planning to create an access point to Memorial Gardens for fire emergency access.
Emergency access point.
Yeah.
We talked about a number of different options. Sorry. I understand what you're saying, but for the motion, is it necessary to, could you just say a secondary access point in the event that there's some other?
As discussed at the meeting.
Okay, that covers, okay.
Correct, emergency, that's why I added the emergency access, yes, yeah.
But I would probably add that it needs to be an improved access to be able to handle the emergency equipment.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think we would take any issue with that. I think as we get off of our property, that becomes challenging to.
Yeah.
But within the confines of our property.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, my motion.
Second.
Still, all right.
Second. Yes.
All right, Nathan seconded. Any further discussion? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion passes 7-0. All right. Is there any other business or announcements from staff?
No, sir.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, it was both at the same time.